Madagascar's transitional president Michael Redrina took an important step in strengthening his country's ties with Russia, specifically on a significant overnight flight from Madagascar specifically to Moscow. He embarked on a journey that will actually play a key role in the future of Madagascar's international partnerships. Ladies and gentlemen, before his departure, President Redrina, Michael, reaffirmed that Madagascar's foreign policy remains based on open diplomacy, multilateral cooperation, and of course collaboration with all partners who can actually aid the country's development. Madagascar's aim is clear: to work with nations or countries that can actually serve the interest of the Malagasy people, regardless of their geographic location or historical ties. This commitment to broad, inclusive partnerships places Madagascar at a crossroads where it is not actually only seeking support from traditional partners, but also looking towards newer and increasingly important or essential allies like Russia. This visit to Russia is a step in that direction. This visit follows other recent diplomatic activities. Earlier in February 2026, Russia's Deputy Prime Minister, ladies and gentlemen, Alexander, met with Madagascar's Minister of Armed Forces. Ladies and gentlemen, these meetings were actually designed to lay the groundwork for stronger bilateral relations. It is clear that both nations or countries see great potential in closer ties, especially as the world actually shifts or changes towards more diversified international relationships. But there is more to this visit than just diplomacy. Ladies and gentlemen, guess what? The transitional government of Madagascar is keen or eager on moving forward with practical agreements that can actually offer tangible benefits to the people of Madagascar or the country. The president focused on developing all-round partnerships in an indication of Madagascar's ambition to balance both economic and of course strategic cooperation across multiple fronts. Now, ladies and gentlemen, in few seconds, we will actually explore the deeper implications of this relationship and how it might actually influence Madagascar's future and the entire African continent. Before we actually dive deeper into this, please make sure once again to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell, because this happens to be a Pan-African community where we need more important people like you to build and discuss African development every single day. So join us by doing the needful. Thank you. As President Michael Redrina As President Michael Redrina landed in Moscow, the anticipation of what will actually come next was actually palpable or very pure. His visit to Russia marks a significant chapter in Madagascar's evolving or developing foreign policy. What initially appeared to be a diplomatic gesture has now grown into a strategic partnership with a focus on mutual development during this time in Moscow or Russia. The Malagasy president engaged in talks that emphasized collaboration in key areas such as trade, defense, and of course infrastructure development. This visit, ladies and gentlemen, in response to an invitation from the Russian government being led by Vladimir Putin, was not just a diplomatic formality but an opportunity to align Madagascar's needs with Russia's growing influence in Africa. The visit comes at a time when Africa is actually increasingly seeking diverse international relationships, ladies and gentlemen, choosing cooperation based on shared benefits rather than historical ties. Russia has been positioning itself as an alternative to traditional Western powers or forces in many African states or countries, offering a different approach to partnerships, one that is actually often seen as more flexible and less politically entangled. The Malagasy government or leadership commitment to these talks, ladies and gentlemen, is a sign that they are actually looking for more than just aid or help. They are seeking long-term sustainable partnerships that can actually support Madagascar's national development goals. Russia's strong interest in supporting African states or countries, especially through trade and of course resource development, has made it a key player in this process. But the situation didn't actually end there, ladies and gentlemen. Russia's role in Africa is actually growing, and its engagement with Madagascar is part of a larger pattern of expanding influence. Countries on the continent of Africa, like Madagascar, are looking for new ways to collaborate and of course develop their economies without being tied to traditional powers that often come with political strings attached. As we actually continue, ladies and gentlemen, we will actually examine the broader implications of this growing relationship, not only for Madagascar but also for the African continent and Russia's long-term goals. Whilst President Michael Redrina visit to Russia marks a significant diplomatic move. The relationship between the two states or countries is not limited to political talks, ladies and gentlemen. Let me actually make it clear. Just days after his arrival in Moscow today, Madagascar experienced a devastating cyclone Gezani, striking the coast and of course leaving a wake of destruction. Russia's response to this disaster was actually swift or very quick. The Russian government, being led by Vladimir Putin, ladies and gentlemen, through its embassy in Madagascar, sent a team with vital humanitarian aid or assistance. This included, ladies and gentlemen, a mine aid helicopter, cargo trucks, and of course specialized machinery to assist in rescue efforts and the delivery of much needed supplies to affected areas. The disaster relief was not only timely but also critical in helping Madagascar cope with the aftermath of the cyclone. The Russian response is indicative of the growing cooperation between the two states or countries. It is a demonstration of Russia's willingness, to help its partners in times of crisis, showing that their relationship goes beyond political agreement or deals and of course economic collaboration. The aid sent by Russia was just the beginning, ladies and gentlemen, with more humanitarian supplies expected to arrive in the coming days. The response to Cyclone Gezani reveals or shows an important aspect of this new partnership, ladies and gentlemen. The practical support that Russia is actually offering or giving, it is not just about high-level meetings or trade agreements or deals. It is about showing up when it matters most. For Madagascar, this assistance is not only a lifeline in a moment of crisis, but it also strengthens the foundation of deeper cooperation moving forward. This shift or change in Madagascar's foreign policy and of course alliances could actually have significant implications for the future of the island nation or country. It shows how Africa as a whole is diversifying its diplomatic ties and of course how Russia is actually becoming a more integral part of this landscape, or let's say that environment. As the situation, ladies and gentlemen, in Madagascar stabilizes, the long-term effects of the country's growing ties with Russia begin to come into focus. Now the question is very simple. What does this mean for the future of Madagascar? That is the question for you. How will it influence the broader African continent? Now let's continue deeper. The immediate impact of the cyclone and of course Russia's humanitarian response shows how bilateral partnerships can actually play a critical role in times of need. But the deeper question remains, what long-term consequences will this new cooperation bring? For Madagascar, ladies and gentlemen, these partnerships open new doors. With Russia's support, Madagascar can actually expect enhanced cooperation in trade, infrastructure, and of course developments with projects. As Madagascar's leader seek to build a more resilient economy, Russia's growing presence in Africa could actually help provide the necessary tools and partnerships to succeed. On a larger scale, this relationship serves as a model for other African states or countries looking for alternatives to actually traditional Western alliances. Russia's willingness to engage with African states or countries on a more equal footing without the political conditions that often or always accompany Western aid may encourage more countries to follow suit. The shift towards a multipolar world order is evident, with countries like Madagascar now diversifying their alliances. By partnering with Russia, Madagascar is not only positioning itself for future growth but also contributing to the reshaping of Africa's global position. Make sure that you're going to give us your incredible support by liking first of all, and most importantly subscribe, turn on the notification bell so that you can actually stay updated always